good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time of day you're watching this. If it's your first time here, welcome. Do me a favor though, hit that subscribe button that's right there. I'm on my way to 5 million subscribers, so you subscribing to this channel really helps. If you're already a regular contributor to this channel, I really appreciate the support. If you could do me one more solid though, give me a thumbs up on this video so I get in the algorithm of YouTube and can make it to 5 million subscribers. That's the goal. Today I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of hauling reefer freight around this country. Get the bad news out first, because that's all trucking is. All trucking is bad news. All you got to do is turn on YouTube and search trucking, and all it's going to come up with is bad news. So let's get that out of the way first. I came up with 4 things that I really would definitely consider cons in the trucking industry when it comes to hauling reefer freight. Well, number 1 is the hours. The hours are very strange. You're usually delivering in very early mornings or very late at night, and then you are picking up at like 8-9 o'clock in the morning. So you might have a 2-3 o'clock appointment to make a delivery, and then within 4 or 5 hours you have to go do your pickup and then drive for that day. So the hours are very, very strange. Number 2 is the wait times. There is a lot of waiting sitting in a dock or sitting in a staging area when you are hauling reefer freight in this country. I would bet my average is about 3 hours after my scheduled appointment to either be loaded or unloaded. But there are times where you might sit 24 hours waiting to get loaded or unloaded. There is a notorious chicken plant that will hold you. Now, I've never sat 24 hours, but I have sat 18 hours before waiting to get a chicken load, and waiting to get unloaded once, hauling some chicken. But yeah, the wait times in this side of this industry are absolutely horrendous. But that's where you incorporate a split sleeper. That goes back to number 1, the hours. You're running a lot of split sleepers in the reefer game. Very seldom are you getting a full 10 hours off. You're usually taking your 7 or 3 hour break in a dock while you are being loaded or unloaded or in one of their staging areas. And then the minute you're loaded or unloaded, you are driving to either your delivery or your next pickup, where you're going to get your second split sleeper break in of 2 or 3 hours or even 8 hours. But the wait times in the reefer industry are very hard to handle for some people. I've gotten used to them. That's when I do sleep, is when I am waiting to get loaded or unloaded, and that's when I'm making my food and eating in my truck. So yeah, number 2 would be the wait times. Number 3 is parking. Trying to find safe parking as a reefer hauler is something that's pretty difficult to do. You do spend a lot of money reserving parking spots, and that doesn't even guarantee you that your spot's going to be there when you show up. How many times have you pulled into a truck stop, say at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, to fill your reefer tank or fill your tanks, and you've noticed the lot is full? Well, you know what? Us reefer guys aren't done with our days at that time. We're going to our deliveries, or we're going to like a late afternoon pickup, and by the time we are loaded or unloaded, there isn't parking available. And there are some cold storage facilities or big grocery warehouses that do have overnight parking. Majority of them don't, and they won't allow you to stay on their property. And it's gotten to the point where in a lot of these communities where these cold storage facilities are, they've put signs all along the road of no parking, and they actually have enforcement police officers or the sheriff department patrolling those roads, ticketing us when we're parked in no parking zones, which is understandable. We're parked in no parking zones. If you park in a no parking zone, you're gonna get a ticket. That's your fault. But the reality is there's really no place for us to go after we leave these big grocery facilities or cold storage facilities. Parking is an absolute huge problem in the reefer game because of just the hours that Number 4, in my experience, is the weight. I am always between like 37 and 45,000 pounds in the box. The loads typically in the reefer industry are very, very heavy. Every now and then you'll get lucky. I think last week I had a load that weighed, that was a dry load though. But every now and then you'll get lucky and you'll get a load that maybe weighs 8,000 pounds. But through my experience of 2.5 years of being an OTR reefer freight hauler, my loads are always heavy. I'm always pushing the gross vehicle weight limit of my equipment, which is 80,000 pounds. I'm always in the high 70s. Very seldom am I in the 60s. So weight plays a role in a lot of things. Wear and tear on your equipment, your fuel economy. So I would say that's a definite con of being a reefer freight hauler, is just the weight of that you are constantly hauling. Let's talk about some pros of being a reefer freight hauler. One would be work. There is usually a high volume of reefer freight that needs to be moved around this country, and it's typically something that's very, very easy to find in a normal market. I would say volumes for reefer freight have dropped lately, but overall, through my 2.5 years of experience as an owner-operator hauling reefer freight OTR, I have noticed that there is more work and more availability to get loads than other types of trucking. Well, the number 2 pro would be less deadhead miles. I can't tell you how many times I have made a delivery to a facility and picked up at that exact same facility. So I'm operating with 0 deadhead. I mean, anytime you're delivering to like Americold, Lineage, US Cold Storage, try and see if there's loads leaving that same facility. But I guarantee you there's other cold storage facilities or grocery warehouses in the towns that you are delivering to where you can eliminate your deadhead miles and pick up in the same town or city that you are delivering in to lower your deadhead miles. I would say that's a definite pro in being a reefer freight hauler, less deadhead miles. Number 3 would be you're typically delivering to big warehouse facilities, so their lots are huge. They're easy to maneuver, easy to get turned around, easy to back up. So if you're new to trucking and you're not 100% comfortable backing up, a lot of the places I go to hauling reefer freight are wide open. There's plenty of room to maneuver. Now, if you're delivering to small or like bigger cities like Chicago and things like that, those areas can shrink on you, but most of the time you are going to be dealing with big warehouses that have big lots, and it's very, very easy to maneuver. So I would say that's a definite pro in reefer freight hauling, is the ability to maneuver easily and not backing down alleys and things like that. Number 4 I left for last because it's my favorite. Money. Historically, reefer freight pays higher than like dry van freight and other forms of trucking. I'm not saying it's the highest paid, but typically and historically, your lanes, even right now in this down market, you're gonna get a higher rate per mile hauling reefer freight, and you're probably gonna get a higher contracted freight hauling reefer freight around the country. At least in my 2.5 years of experience and the customers that I deal with as an owner-operator, that is what I have experienced, that reefer freight usually pays higher, and that's why I'm doing this. I want to make as much money as I can, and that's why I chose to be a reefer freight hauler, even though I had about 10 years of local and regional reefer freight hauling before I became an owner-operator. I knew historically that reefer freight lanes usually pay higher than other forms of trucking. Through my experience of being a reefer freight hauler, I figured those were 4 very good pros and cons of being a reefer freight hauler. Now, granted, this is all my experience. If you have different experiences, please leave me a comment. And if you've made it this far in the video, how about you do me a favor? Give me a thumbs up on this video. And until next time, you know what it is. Keep on trucking.